I'd like to welcome you to the Chapter 49 podcast. Today is August 25th of 2022. My name is Larry Lannan. I'm a communications volunteer for Chapter 49. We represent most IRS employees in the state of Indiana. I'd like to apologize to our loyal listeners and viewers. We did miss a week last week. We told you in advance we would miss the week before. Unfortunately, there was a death in my family, so I was away and unable to produce this podcast last week. So we apologize for not being there, but we are here now. And Duncan Giles, of course, is with us as always. And welcome once again, Duncan.
Thank you very much, Larry. Good to be here.
And of course, I overrode Duncan with music. So, obviously the producer is not on his game at the moment. If you're watching, we have a guest, a man who has been on this podcast several times before, and we're always honored to have him. The national president of the National Treasury Employees Union, NTEU, Tony Reardon. So, President Reardon, welcome once again. Always an honor to have you with us.
Well, I will tell you, both Duncan and Larry, it is my honor to be with you. So happy to be here.
Well, great to have you. And there's so much we need to discuss. I'm going to open this up with a question about something you had recently done. You released publicly a letter you sent to IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig, and it had to do with safety, calling on a safety and security review for the entire IRS with all the threats and all the, quite frankly, crazy comments being made by people nationwide that normally you would not expect to see, as like sitting senators and members of the House, for instance. So what I would like you to start off with is explain the letter you sent to the commissioner and the response you have received so far.
Absolutely, Larry. Glad to do it. So let me kind of take a step back even a little bit further and talk about why the need even for the letter. There's, and you referred to it, talking about some of the folks in Congress that have been telling candidly what, I've described as dangerous and false rhetoric. And ultimately they are, they're lies. And, I think that those lies are harmful enough, but now the lies are resulting in threats to employee safety. So let's clear this up, right? For everybody listening, because I know you have certainly IRS employees, but also others from NTEU and maybe even outside of NTEU who view or listen to this podcast. There is not going to be an army of 87,000 armed new IRS agents. That simply is a falsehood. And I will also say that they will not be the 87,000 that we keep hearing about employees. First of all, 52,000, according to IRS, of those 87,000 are going to be individuals who are going to be filling spots of those over the next 6 years who are expected to attrit out of the IRS. And so these new employees that are going to be hired, they're not going to be targeting small business owners. So we have heard loudly, as I'm sure Duncan, you have, from our members about their concerns regarding safety. As a result, I wrote a letter and sent it last Saturday to Commissioner Rettig, asking for a full-blown security review. And Commissioner Rettig, to his credit, responded very quickly and on Tuesday ordered the review that I had asked for. I think we all have seen that this has been a major a national news story, as it should be. And so I think that is really very good news for employees, for the IRS. And so NTEU is certainly cooperating through this process. So we really need to hear from employees about what needs to be improved. And, for example, in my view, the kinds of things that really need to be looked at is we need to look at stricter access to IRS buildings. We need to make sure that the physical structures, the physical workplaces are hardened, that there are enough security guards, that local law enforcement is cooperating with one another, and so they are communicating very clearly and timely about any threats that are out there. And you know, I mean, there are even things that, when you really think about it, I suspect are needed in some locations where you even need better lighting outside of the building. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that I think are happening. And so I think what we need to do, Larry, is this review, security review, is underway. And so I think one of the things that will be important is, as the review is you know, as the IRS undergoes the review, there are going to be things that are going to be learned through that review. And so I think that will uncover some of the things that other things that need to be dealt with, in addition to what I've already outlined.
You know, before I turn it over to Duncan again, I just want to say one quick thing. I spent my last 6 years at IRS as a manager. Duncan refers to this as my time to the dark side of the force. But one thing, I was a manager of taxpayer assistance centers. And when we had that horrible incident where a man flew an airplane into an IRS office in Austin, Texas, that resulted in a security review. All the managers of these taxpayer assistance centers have been sending in security reports for years. And when that happened, and when people sat down and looked at all of those security reports we had been submitting, literally over a weekend, there were armed guards in every taxpayer assistance center. So security reviews do bring about very important changes. So I'm very glad to hear that you made the proposal and that the commissioner has had a positive response, and that is underway. So I'm going to turn this over for the next question to Duncan Giles.
Yeah, Tony, one of the things is, you and I have both heard, they're going, like you said, they're going to be these 87,000 armed agents. And as I've explained to numerous people outside the IRS, including some of the media, the fact that the armed agents that we're going to be hiring are probably less than 0.5%. And, this hiring is actually a good thing, as I tell people, and I'm sure you have too, is, we need to have more people on the phones. We need to have more people on the campuses. We need to have more people out there auditing the folks that are trying to hide stuff. We need to have the folks in collection who are going out and getting the money that is owed to the government, that folks have ignored notices or nervous, not able to pay, things of that nature. But when we get some of this rhetoric out there that is whipping people up, I just want, I'm first off very appreciative of your efforts on the national level to try and, bring this to the IRS and everyone else's attention. But, I just wonder how much we're going to be able to tamp this down in the near future, so it does calm down a little bit. What are your senses when you've talked to people? Is this going to be ongoing thing that we're going to have to be fighting for a long period of time, or do you think it'll calm down a little bit?
Well, Duncan, your question is obviously a very good one, and I wish I had a crystal ball within which to peer so that I could give you a really good answer. But here's what I'll tell you, and this is encouraging to me. Just in the last 24 hours, I've had 3 television appearances. I've also had, over the last several days, many other media contacts, whether it be radio or journalism, written journalism. And one of the things that I will tell you that I have been very gratified to see is that everybody who is reporting on this reports that all of this rhetoric out there is in fact, or they are in fact, I should say, lies. And so I think that there is the chance that it will get tamped down. But unfortunately, we are in a place in our country with the political divisions that exist, that people get their news wherever they get it, and they tend to get the news that sort of coincides with, you know, the narrative that they're used to believing or espousing. And so I think it is, the question you ask is a really good one, and I don't know the answer, but I think there is a chance that it will be tamped down a little bit. But here's the other thing. I think there are many Americans that are just simply tired of people being threatened and lies resulting in the potential for people being threatened. Look, you know, Larry mentioned the Echelon building where the taxpayer flew the airplane in Austin in 2010. Obviously, we all remember what happened at the Alfred Murrah built federal building in Oklahoma City when Timothy McVeigh and his crew bombed the building. And so when the lies start, these are the kinds of things that are happening. And look, I mean, certainly right now, the IRS seems to be kind of in the focus of a lot of this, but it's all of government. And that is part of the problem. That's the fear that I have, is that certainly my fear about anything happening potentially to IRS employees, but also just that any employees. And so to what extent will somebody, like occurred last week outside the FBI building in Cincinnati, right?
Right.
So those kinds of things can certainly happen. And that's one of the reasons that NTEU and I personally have come out so strong on trying to address this particular issue. But I will tell you that I'm in the process of going to, we represent employees at NTEU in 34 agencies. I'm in the process right now of going to every single agency head where we represent folks to request that they have the security review of their locations. I am concerned about all of our members. And so we're in the process of doing that too, because, who knows what could happen. And here's one of the things that concerns me. I do not want there to be a tragedy that is what is the catalyst for change. We need to get on the front end of this and make sure that people are as safe as possible. But part of that is, and folks, that are watching, we have some impact on this because we can reach out to our elected representatives, and if they are the ones who are in fact coming up with all this negative rhetoric, tell them to stop. Shouldn't happen. And then ultimately, I think it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we are putting on Capitol Hill, putting into nationally elected offices those people who support us. Sorry about the long answer.
No, I think it's a very good one and a needed one. And I think that's one of your last points was extremely important, is we need to have our folks, our members and other employees, let their elected officials know that you can't be saying this, and to educate them. I've been reaching out to a couple of different congressional offices in my state, where people have, had the rhetoric, and let them know that, here's some facts. I want to try and confuse them with facts rather than the rhetoric that they're getting out there, because it's just nuts to me. Because this is ultimately, and I think you'll agree with this, is, the hiring is a good thing. This Absolutely. Is going to be a good thing for the United States, for the taxpayers.
Well, Duncan, you're exactly right. And so, to put this in perspective for the viewers and listeners, if you go back to just the 2010, the IRS has lost 20,000 employees. It is something on the order of 22%, I think, of their staffing. No organization, no company, could function effectively through that. So the money is needed to bring in sufficient staffing, number one. Number two, to improve customer service, funding is needed. Number three, when you think, and you both know this, when you think to the technology that the IRS currently utilizes, in 2022, it dates back much of it to the 1960s. And so there is absolutely this increased funding is needed for that purpose as well. And the final thing I guess I want to say about this is, IRS employees, let's remember this, everybody. IRS employees are responsible for administering a tax system based on laws, right, that are put in place by Congress. So it's not like the IRS or the IRS employees are the ones coming up with the laws. And so I think we need to keep that in mind. And oh, by the way, if we don't have a fully well-functioning IRS, our economy is in shambles. Right. The IRS brings in 95% of our government's revenue. That's how we have a powerful defense in this country. All the public services that we offer to our citizens, it comes through the money that is brought in by the IRS. IRS employees have the right, like any other employees, to go to work and to be safe in going to work and while at work. I get a little bit passionate about this.
Well, I think you should. I don't think there's any reason. And I just want to, if you can make a brief comment, because you've already addressed this, but I want to make sure this point is made. And by the way, when I came to work at the IRS in the 1980s, we were considered to be ahead of the game in terms of technology. And it's really sad that we have, as an agency, as a retired person from that agency, have fallen so far behind. But I would like just a quick comment for you as to what this Inflation Reduction Act will mean to the Internal Revenue Service, to its employees. It's going to make some very big changes. So I want you just to summarize a little bit what people working for IRS and the public will see differently with an IRS that is fully funded for at least the next 10 years.
Well, so look, I think we just talked about a little bit about the technology. I think that will assist both taxpayers as well as employees in ways that maybe we can't even imagine, right? But I think there will be a huge impact on that. In terms of customer service, let's just think about this. As we bring in more staffing, we're going to have more people who are going to be available to answer telephones at the IRS. Right now, I believe the level of service, and Duncan, you might even know this better than me, it fluctuates, but I've heard anywhere from 11% to 14% level of service in answering the phones at the IRS. I can tell you, I remember several years ago, many years ago at this point now, I guess, where the level of service was in the 70s, and
yep.
And that was thought to be, well, okay, decent. In the 70s, let's provide the funding that the IRS needs so that, the level of service is, they're able to dramatically increase that. So I think in terms of customer service, I think it's a big issue. Technology, there are so many things that, this funding is going to help the IRS do and ultimately benefit the taxpayer. Here's another thing. If you just look at the tax gap, and it obviously that, it changes all the time, but it's like over $400 billion, I believe, at this juncture. We've heard the commissioner say, I think in the last year, he said in front of Congress, he thought it might even be $1 trillion. Wherever it is, it's a lot of money. And to have more IRS employees who are then even better suited through technology and training. In 2013, the training dollars at the IRS were cut by 85%. And so as you improve training, which takes dollars, you're going to better prepare IRS employees to be able to work with these corporations who are, unfortunately, in some of these higher earners that aren't paying their fair share. The IRS is going to be better positioned to reduce some of that tax gap. So there are a lot of things this money is going to be able to do.
Duncan and I have been talking for weeks, months, maybe over a year about the COVID protocols, the testing, the reasonable accommodations. Duncan, I'd like you to take over the questioning about what's happening there.
Yeah, if you could, Tony, update us exactly where we're at right now with the COVID protocols, because I understand now we're not going to be doing the testing But there is still some safeguards that we still want people to do. So if you could dive into that a little bit, and I know it's constantly evolving.
It is. So for the listeners, there is new CDC guidance that is out there that has ended the screening testing program. And just to be clear, this is something that way before the CDC changed their guidance was something that NTEU had asked to happen. Because ultimately, here's the bottom line. The testing program was not achieving the intended goal of keeping people safe. So at the IRS, the testing program is over, and the IRS is currently in the process of winding it down, including canceling the contract that they had with the vendor. We believe that the money could be better spent by providing high quality masks to employees. And the IRS, I will also say, is no longer asking for vaccination status either. And just to, because I get this question quite frequently, so I just want to clear this up, and with everybody paying attention here, the vaccine mandate requirement is still in court. And so as a result, everything around the vaccine mandate itself is on hold while that legal battle plays out.
There is some good news that I think we need to talk about here, and that is the fact that Duncan and his team in bargaining the national agreement was able to obtain a child care subsidy in the contract. There have been some bumps in the road as far as getting it started. Talk about where okay, Duncan is going to laugh at that one. I'm trying to be so I'll let you chime in, Tony. Just tell us about where that stands and who will benefit from this.
Well, so first off, let me say this. A huge thank you and credit to our Irs bargaining team, of which, Larry, you've mentioned several times in prior programs that Duncan was one of the full-time team members of the bargaining team. And so a credit to Duncan and everybody else on the bargaining team that negotiated what I believe is an outstanding win for employees. So here's kind of where we are. The enrollment window closes on September 14th. And so I am urging absolutely every employee who may qualify to apply, because ultimately what this means is as much as $5,000 per year back in your pocket, depending on your income level. So the IRS reports the enrollment period is moving along fine. But one of the things that I will share with you is make sure that you have all the documents that you're going to need in front of you as you are applying. And NTEU has previously shared what that information is. You can go to the IRS source. There are things you're going to need like OPM forms, your tax return, your SF-50, the child care provider's fee info. And I don't know, Duncan, is there anything else you can think of that I'm missing there?
Anything to do with the child care, where the child care provider is located. I think their tax ID number, if they have it, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Have the documentation there together. And, Tony, you're so right. If you think you may qualify for this, please go ahead and, enroll in it. Because if we can save you some money, this was, Ken Moffitt. I credit Ken Moffitt for this, our director of negotiations. I call it, this is his baby. And it's just such a great thought and great idea. And, let's take advantage of it, because it is a benefit the employees should have.
And you're right, Duncan. And I would also say that, if you do not enroll right now, you can only enroll when you have a major life event or in the next annual enrollment period. So,
Right.
If this is something you might qualify for, don't delay.
Get her done.
Get her done is exactly right. Now, let me also speak very briefly, if I can, about the retroactive payments. So the program, this entire program was supposed to start, as I think certainly IRS employees know, in January of 2022. And, I won't go into all the reasons, why it didn't, but it didn't. And the IRS was delinquent in getting this off the ground. So as a result, NTEU filed a national grievance, and we asked for retroactive payments to January of 2022. The IRS is prepared to make those payments. So there's an important point that I want to make. You have to enroll during this period, so by September 14th, in order to get the retroactive payments. Finally, I would say, even if you are no longer using childcare, you are still eligible for the retroactive payments. There may be a situation where right now you're not using it, but you did use it in the prior, in the earlier part of the year. You still could get retroactive payments for that period of time.
We just have a few minutes left, so Tony, I would like for you to address one last thing. Because we're recording this on August 25th, the day before we record this, President Biden announced a $10,000, for some people on Pell Grants, $20,000 loan forgiveness for student debt, which is a big story. But there's another part of this that NTEU's been talking about. There's a public service loan forgiveness program. So if you could take a couple of minutes, talk about that, and encourage people to apply if they may be eligible.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. So a waiver was put in place by the Department of Education that allows many more employees to be eligible for the federal loan forgiveness program. And, look, anybody who's tried to work within this program knows that it has been badly broken. And so NTEU fought extremely hard for all of these changes. But I do want to make sure that, there is a deadline. You've got to apply by October 31st of this year. And what I'll tell you is, it is, we are seeing some improvements. And in fact, thousands of folks with loans, they've already had loans forgiven. Just this week, in fact, NTEU sent some information out on this, including some information about webinars about the process that employees can follow in order to join. So let me give everybody, if you're interested in this and you want to find out a little bit more about it, let me give you a website, because I know a lot of folks here on the staff have been going to it pretty frequently as we've been trying to work with all of these changes that are happening. You can go to www.pslf.gov. Let me give that again. www.pslf.gov. And you can certainly learn more there.
And we'll put that website on our show notes as well, so people will have another way to get to it. We're nearly out of time. Duncan, any final question for our national president?
I just want, Tony, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you'd like to bring up at this time?
So the one thing that I will mention, because I was instructed by the Public Relations and Communications Department to talk a little bit about the Irs contract. And one of the reasons, I don't know, can you all see that? So we've heard from a lot of people, hey, when are we getting the contract? Well, you see it. It's here. The contract is here.
For those listening, he's putting it up on the screen just for your information.
Right. And the reason PR wanted me to show this is because the this cover that I just showed, up on the screen, is something that NTEU designed. So the contracts here is the takeaway. The IRS, as I understand it, is already in process of providing a copy to every employee. So what was the reason that it was delayed? And Duncan, you probably know this as well as I do. What we heard from the IRS is that there was a paper shortage that caused the delay. And so as a result, the printing and distribution didn't happen, but it has now started. And so every bargaining unit employee should be getting their copy of the contract, hopefully very soon.
Well, that's very good news. Lots of people like that paper in their hand, even though we are in a digital age. And Duncan and I have talked about this. Our experience is that we're more managers and employees who use the paper copy. So it may be a better, be more for them. Tony Reardon, thank you so much. We always appreciate you taking time to join us so you can have kind of a long form discussion about what's going on. And we really touched the surface. We could have talked about a lot more. So we hope you will come back and talk to us again in the future. I'm sure there'll be no shortage of subjects. Any final comment or question from Duncan before we go?
My only comment is, I always espouse this, and I know Tony espouses it as well. Get a work-life balance. I was able to strike off something from my bucket list last week and go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a couple of days. Can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. My awesome girlfriend, Kim, put that together. But I mean, we all work hard. We bust our butts. Our employees that we represent do a great job, but take time to do stuff that's important to you. It helps recharge you.
Yes, even as a retired guy, I'd get involved in too many volunteer activities, including this one. So I actually have to back off a little bit. Thank you once again to everybody watching and listening. Tony Reardon, again, our great thanks to you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. We try to make this a weekly podcast to the extent that we can, but Duncan Giles and I are always on, and we do have guests, and we, again, appreciate our national president, Tony Reardon, joining us. We have both an audio and video version. You can go to YouTube and find Duncan Giles. That's our video version. Or you can go to just about any audio platform and just see the Chapter 49 podcast there. So thank you for watching and listening. Please be safe and be kind.